Greetings everyone, and welcome to my look back at IDW Sonic Year 2. Yes, like last year, I've decided to do a video summarizing what exactly happened in the comics throughout 2019, mainly for those who haven't read the book, watched my reviews, etc. And for those up to date, it's a way to look back and reflect on everything that's happened. And boy, Year 2 really upped the ante, didn't it? Before we begin, I should warn you that there will be spoilers for up to issue 24 of the main book, any spin-off materials released in 2019, and any future issue solicitations and covers released at this point. Without further ado, let's dive right in. This year introduced a bunch of comic spin-off material into the mix. Well, technically, it started at the end of 2018 with the release of the one-shot tie-in to Team Sonic Racing. It was re-released in 2019 around the time the game came out. Now, will the events of the tie-in be its own out-of-universe thing, or will it connect to the IDW continuity? Only time will tell. What is canon is a book that was released around the spring of 2019, the IDW Sonic 2019 Annual. It's a collection of 5 stories set around different points in the comics timeline, some before the comic events begin, others in between major arcs, with the goal to expand this universe. For the most part, it succeeded. Utilizing new creative talent, or talent in different roles, we got stories involving Sonic and Tails testing a new booster engine in an extreme situation, Blaze helping Silver grow a garden, mercenaries rough and tumble trying to find weapons in an abandoned Eggman base, only to run into Rouge, and a Sonic fan club trying to establish itself. What I consider the main story of this collection, only because it's the longest and it's written by Ian Flynn, featured the 2 heroic comic characters Tangle the Lemur and Whisper the Wolf. Apparently, after the Battle of Angel Island, Tangle invited Whisper to visit Spiral Hill Village. There was a brief tour to show how the town recovered since the events of issue 4 of the main book, and we were introduced to a new character, Tangle's childhood friend, Jewel, owner of a mineral museum. Said museum came under attack courtesy of the returning Sega characters, the Babylon Rogues. Stealing items is one thing, but kidnapping Jewel, even by accident, is taking things too far. Tangle and Whisper mounted a rescue, not only saving Jewel's life, but recovering the stolen property. In hindsight, seeing Tangle and Whisper in action here served as sort of a pilot to what I consider the major comic spin-off of the year. Yeah, it was a big year for Tangle and Whisper, so much so that for a limited time, the Sega shop sold pins of these 2 characters. Sadly though, as far as I'm aware, they're no longer available. Anyway, running alongside the main book was a 4-part miniseries starring them. The plot of the miniseries had Tangle wanting to fulfill her need for adventure, but is afraid to leave Spiral Hill Village in case something should happen. If only she knew. It just so happened her call to adventure arrived in the form of Whisper apparently shooting at Sonic. Only it's not Sonic. It's actually a shape-shifting mercenary named Mimic, and he and Whisper have been playing a cat and mouse game for a long time. The 2 were originally members of an anti-Eggman group called the Diamond Cutters. Besides Whisper and Mimic, whose real form is an octopus, there was Smithy, a lion tech genius that utilized a Gatling gun Wispin, Clairvoyance, a howler monkey who's the team's psychic, and Slinger, a sharpshooter with a pair of revolver-like Wispins who's also an ocelot. If you can't tell by now, the Metal Gear Solid series was a major influence in the creation of the Diamond Cutters. Some of these shoutouts are more in your face than others. Apparently, the miniseries had so much Metal Gear nods, some of it spilled into the main book, but I digress. Mimic was only part of the group for the reward, not the cause. And when things got rough, he conspired with Eggman to eliminate the team. Whisper survived because Claire told her to remain outside, but the wolf still witnessed the tragedy. The team masks have the ability to not only record their actions in first person, they are networked to each other. So Whisper had footage of her teammates getting slaughtered by shadow androids. Mimic decided the conflict had gone on long enough and invited Whisper to an old Eggman warehouse to end this. She reluctantly brought Tangle along to help. hey, it was the excitement the lemur was looking for. Well, the conflict went badly. Mimic used his shape-shifting abilities to separate the two, locking Tangle in an airtight vault, and trying to use a badnik to kill Whisper. On top of that, the warehouse was rigged to explode. At least Mimic was kind enough to reveal Tangle's location before the big boom. Ironically, that airtight safe was the only thing that saved Tangle and Whisper. Afterwards, we learned why Whisper was hesitant to bring Tangle along, and even wanting to send her home. She didn't want to lose another friend. Seemed Tangle had been influencing Whisper in a positive way. It's subtle, but it's there. Tangle's not willing to abandon Whisper, especially after learning her tragic backstory, and Whisper is grateful for the help. The two leave a message for Mimic to meet them at the old Diamond Cutter base. They correctly assumed he'd return to confirm their deaths since Eggman wanted proof. Despite Eggman loaning a small badnik force to aid Mimic, Tangle and Whisper had the advantage this time. After wailing on him, the shapeshifter goes down. Whisper wanted to kill him for all that he's done, but Tangle managed to talk her out of it. Instead, he's placed in a containment unit that Tails originally made to study weather. He'd be transferred to a prison right away. And as a final bit of humiliation, Tangle mentioned that even if Mimic escaped, Eggman won't be happy that he failed to kill Whisper and wasted a whole squad of badniks. The miniseries overall answered some questions about Whisper's past, like how did she get her variable Wispin, and why she preferred to be alone. Seeing the end of her team in a horrific manner would mess anyone up. While having all the Diamond Cutter Wisps on hand eased her loneliness a little, she didn't want to risk forming connections again until Tangle came along. She didn't want to go through the pain of losing someone else again. Also, that scene where she wanted to send Tangle home, it's one of the few times Whisper actually got emotional. File all of this away for later. Tangle joined the adventure all gung-ho, and as a result, almost died. But that little brush with death, plus getting the complete picture, was necessary to help her grow. She definitely has heart, and a willingness to learn from her mistakes. I think that's why Whisper, and a number of readers, have grown to like her. Mimic's the kind of villain you'd wish death upon, though I'm glad he's alive. If only for the fact we need more villains in this continuity. Having a villain with shape-shifting powers could work if utilized properly. Overall, the Tangle and Whisper miniseries is a personal tale filled with tragedy and despair, but also with hope. But all that pain and suffering was nothing compared to what happened in the main book. Year 2 started off lighthearted, with Sonic and Tails facing off against Rough and Tumble, and later Sonic and Silver confronting Eggman fanboy Dr. Starline. Stuff that felt like it belonged in Year 1, right? Little did we know it was the calm before the storm. During all of that, Eggman was testing his newest weapon to serve as his big "I'm back, fools" to the world, the Metal Virus. Named as such because if any organic creature, plant or animal, came into contact with it, they would transform into metallic creatures, and in the case of animals, they would take on characteristics reminiscent of zombies. Eggman's planning a robot zombie apocalypse, 2 for the price of 1. Metal virus infection levels can vary. If one is drenched in metal virus goo, transformation is instantaneous. If a drop of goo touches you, the infection will slowly consume you until you're fully changed. Repeated contact with an infected creature speeds up the process due to the way Eggman programmed the virus. Confident that he had control over the metal virus victims, Eggman decided to move on to testing sapient beings. He tricked Rough and Tumble into wearing backpacks containing metal virus goo and sent them after Sonic and Amy, who were at an old Eggman base trying to find the doctor. Activating their packs without knowing what's inside them, the Skunk Brothers are drenched in metal virus goo and are instantly changed. Sonic and Amy, as well as the audience, learned another scary thing about the newly coined term Zombots. They're indestructible. The Zombots Rough and Tumble were dealt with, but at the cost of Sonic himself getting infected. The next stage of Eggman's plan involved mass distribution. Using his new Chaos Emerald powered mobile base, the Face Ship, he would go to a number of populated places to drop a payload of metal virus goo, and let the newly created Zombots spread the infection all over the world. A quick reminder, Dr. Starline provided the Chaos Emeralds in issue 12 to get on Eggman's good graces. Anyway, the first target for mass distribution, Windmill Village. the place that took Eggman in while he was Mr. Tinker. From this point on, the nightmare begins. Zombots would attack various civilians so that they would increase their numbers, and the very land is no longer safe to stand on. With the metavirus/zombot epidemic in full swing, naturally there's chaos. Our familiar heroic characters try to save as many civilians as possible, but this is something out of their element, and eventually, some of them would get infected. I will reveal who got the virus and the circumstances behind it. First, let's go back to Sonic. I've already said how he got infected, but he's a unique case. After some experimentation, it's revealed that he can burn off the symptoms by running very fast. However, it's only temporary, and the metavirus would reassert itself. This meant Sonic could physically fight the Zombots, but not for long. As I said, repeated contact speeds up the infection, and when things got a little dangerous, Sonic would have to bail to get rid of the symptoms. All of the constant fighting and running with little to no break would take a toll on his body. I mean, look at him. He's visibly exhausted. Even worse, by issue 24, his ability to run off the virus was starting to fail, either due to Sonic's fatigue, the virus mutating, or both. The next named character infected was Charmy Bee. The Chaotix were escorting civilians to an evacuation point, and unfortunately, one of them got a bit of small virus goo on her shoulder. Not wanting to take a chance, Vector isolated her from everyone else despite her pleas not to. This didn't sit well with Charmy. Whatever you may think of him, he's still a kid. He sees things as right and wrong, black and white, while Vector and Espio understand the nature of the gray area. As the people were boarding the evac shuttle, Charmy decided to go back for the woman, only to find her fully transformed. This scared him enough to be ambushed by a nearby horde, and that's it for Charmy. The next two victims made their comic debut along with a few other characters. Yes, this year finally brought us Cream the Rabbit, her mother Vanilla, their child companions Cheese and Chocola, the latter haven't been seen since Sonic Heroes, and finally, Gemerol, confirming the events of Sonic Advance 3 have already happened. Quick note, in every issue of the main series from issue 18, the one where Cream debuts, onward, there's a map of the world, showing various characters and locations. It will constantly update as a character and or place gets infected, as indicated by a red X, and characters move to a different location on the map. The reason it looks like a kid's drawing is because Cream's the artist. From what I've heard, it was the editor's idea. In that case, well done. Back to the plot, Eggman specifically targeted Cream's village just to mess with Sonic, and Zombots eventually broke into the rabbit household. Cheese and Chocola sacrificed themselves to help the rabbits escape, which they do, with Sonic and Gemerol's assistance. The next victim had some controversy surrounding it. Team Dark, as in the complete team, yeah, E123 Omega debuted here, was evacuating the citizens of Sunset City with Sonic's help. Both Sonic and Rouge informed Shadow that if Zombots touch him, he could run it off. They're operating under the assumption that Shadow is as fast as Sonic, and can burn off the symptoms. Too bad they didn't clarify it enough to get it through Shadow's thick skull. He thought running away was a cowardly act. Yeah. He also thought being the ultimate life form would protect him from infection. Well, he's in for a rude awakening. He may have alien DNA, but still organic, and thus prone to infection. A lot of people did not like how Shadow acted here, myself included. Around this time, a Reddit post was made saying that someone knew someone who met Ian Flynn at a con and asked about Shadow's behavior. Well, it turns out, there was another idea involved Shadow getting infected that Sega turned down. It involves Shadow removing his inhibitor rings a la Sonic 06 and hoping his Chaos powers would serve as an alternative to running off the infection. While it wouldn't work, at least there was more thought put into this scenario than what we actually got. Omega was also affected by the Zombots. As a robot, he cannot be infected. However, because he's insistent on eliminating all Eggman robots, which the Zombots technically are, he refused to retreat when they started swarming him, and they ripped him to pieces. By the time Tails rescued Omega, all that remained was his head. Finally, for right now, 2 more named casualties occurred at Restoration HQ. They thought the place was secure enough to prevent a zombie infection, but they should have been more strict. Heck, General served as a scanner for infectees, and even he did not catch this one. An infected person managed to sneak inside, and it was all downhill afterwards. At the same time, Vector and Espio managed to find and imprison Zombot Charmy and brought him back to base. They should have brought a stronger container because he broke out once the HQ outbreak began. As a result, the majority of HQ members and the refugees they've gathered were turned. The first named character among them was Vanilla, right in front of Cream. Don't worry, Amy rescued Cream. Physically, that is. Mentally is a whole nother story. The second named person to get infected was Vector. He grabbed Zombot Charmy before he could board the escape shuttle and used his remaining time to hold off the horde, possibly as a way of atonement, while the survivors got away. You might be wondering, where are the likes of Sonic and Tails during all this? Well... Before the attack on Restoration HQ, Tails came up with an idea to find a cure using Sonic's speed as a basis. Sonic would wear a data analyzer, and the information would be sent to Tails' more advanced lab in Central City. No problem, right? Well, before you can say bad timing, Central City came under attack. Tango and Whisper were called in to assist while Tails got to work. He was this close to coming up with and sharing a solution when Zombots stormed the lab. Power was cut, by Zombots Cheese and Chocolo no less, so he couldn't transmit the data to Restoration HQ. Not that it mattered since the base was under attack at the same time. To make matters worse, Tails dropped the server blades containing the data. He was able to escape and meet up with Tango, Whisper, and the Central City survivors, and they were picked up by a shuttle. The same shuttle that escaped Restoration HQ. After being brought up to speed on what happened at base, Tails hoped the data analyzer Sonic has would provide the answers. Speaking of the Hedgehog, during this period, Sonic had his first chance encounter with Eggman since he became Eggman again. He and Starline were experimenting with frequencies so that they can control the Zombots. Hold on a sec, control the Zombots? I thought Eggman had control. Well, it just so happens that distributing the virus over mass populations has caused it to mutate enough so that the Zombots no longer obey Eggman. On top of that, it's revealed that Eggman did not create any cure or vaccine of his own for the metal virus. Yeah, his idea of not getting infected is, don't touch them. He'd wish he made a cure since Sonic's attempt to touch him caused both of them to fall into the Zombot streets below. The only reason Eggman didn't get the virus is because Starline found a working frequency. That didn't last as Sonic put an end to that experiment. Eggman and Starline retreat, and while Sonic prevented them from controlling the Zombots, the data analyzer was damaged in the conflict, meaning all chances for a cure are gone. Tails did not take the news well when Sonic met up with the others in Spiral Hill Village. There were more pressing concerns as said village was under attack, and like before, the heroes were gathering survivors. This time though, they created a choke point between the main town and the shuttles so that they wouldn't get caught off guard, and Gemerald is making use of his scanning abilities. Only problem was, once everyone falls back, the Zombots would start swarming towards the area en masse. Sonic located Tango and told her of this problem, and she has the perfect solution. She'll wrap her tail around a series of lampposts that'll slow down the Zombots. Only problem is, she'll get infected. Not to worry, she's already infected. She was checking in on Jewel, who unfortunately got the virus, and yeah. She gives Sonic a much needed pep talk before executing the plan and saying goodbye. Tango eventually succumbed, but the plan worked. The shuttle got away with little incident. With most of the world converted, who can control these things? Well, it turns out Starline has actually been working on a solution of his own even before the frequency tests. He researched some old Eggman files and discovered the Lost World incident, specifically how the Deadly Six controlled machines. He went to the Lost Hex and met with Zavok to present his offer, which boils down to, you and your crew take control of the Zombots. Zavok accepts. You'd think Starline made a mistake as the Deadly Six want revenge on Eggman and Sonic, and this is their chance. Plus, with the world mostly populated with Zombots, he just handed them a ready-made army on a silver platter. But as we find out, Starline wouldn't seek them out until fully understanding the situation. He knew the Deadly Six would betray him and has a cacophonic conch, the item that can control them, on standby. Will it work? As of right now, we don't know because Year 2 ends with Starline bringing the Deadly Six on board the Face Ship. Year 2 is definitely darker than Year 1, mainly because the characters are dealing with a situation they've never faced before. Smashing badniks, that's just another Tuesday. Taking down giant monsters, becoming old hat. Robot zombie apocalypse, oh boy. This almost feels like something that belongs in the Archie Sonic comics, especially with organics transforming into machines. Well, it turns out the Metal Virus storyline was meant for the Archie comics, taking place sometime after the 300th issue. Obviously, it didn't happen since that series ended after issue 290. Looking back though, I can kinda see the setup. For instance, one of Eggman's sub-bosses in that continuity brought up the possibility of robotization returning. Also, I can easily see the Death Egg instead of the face ship pouring out Metal Virus goo. We could speculate what might have changed between Archie and IDW all day, but the point is, sometimes it's a good idea to hold on to some story ideas. You never know if they can be repackaged elsewhere. And since IDW Sonic is closer to the game continuity, it's interesting to see these versions of the Sega characters go through such hardships and emotional stress. Sonic wants to protect his friends and innocent bystanders any way he can, but he's kinda limited thanks to his unique position. The worse the situation got, the worse his guilt is. Not helped that his friends and allies were giving him the harshest I told you so with regards to letting Eggman / Mr. Tinker be. While he believed he was still right at the time, he might have reconsidered this position when he saw how the people suffered. It got to the point that by the end of year 2, he's thinking, yeah, maybe letting Metal Sonic go was a mistake. That was the catalyst that brought Eggman back despite Starline's machinations. It might be worse since after wrecking the data analyzer, and this is just my personal theory, a small part of him was ready to give up and transform already. He did not, of course, but given his speed's no longer combating the virus, he probably should have. Sonic's feelings on the matter remind me of this bit from Sonic Lost World.
I do trust you, Tails, but the whole world's in danger because I did something stupid. Do you know how much that bites?
Tails is one disaster away from a complete breakdown. Understandable given all that hard work to try and find a cure is gone. I just wish something good came from this whole cure subplot. The saga is not over yet, so we'll see, but if the goal for the moment is to give Tails an emotional punch to the gut, the comic succeeded. You have to give Amy Rose props as a leader. Like everyone else, she's in emotional turmoil. At the beginning of the year, she's reorganized the Resistance into the Restoration to fix the world after the Sonic Forces war, only to have all of that progress undone by Eggman's Metal Virus, as well as losing the majority of her forces and her base. She does keep it together for the handful that are left, and continues to save as many lives as possible. SBO is in a dark place. Losing 2 teammates can make one feel that way. He still wants to help people, but when talking to Sonic, he said he should have been more outspoken against certain actions like Vector bringing Zombot Charming to base, and Sonic's decision to leave Mr. Tinker behind. In fact, he wished Eggman / Mr. Tinker was dealt with when they had the chance, which could either mean imprisonment or murder. The former wouldn't matter since Starline would have found him regardless, and the latter, people have pointed out SBO's death to Eggman quote from Sonic Heroes. Fair enough. But if SBO was thinking of dealing with the guy back around issue 6, then that's horrible. The reason the Chaotix were in Windmill Village in the first place was to confirm that Eggman's amnesia was real. We could debate this point all day, but bottom line, don't make SBO angrier. Cream the rabbit. Oh, poor Cream. When this mess came to her town, she bravely left her house to tell Gemerald not to go overboard when attacking the Zombots. Even after Cheese and Chocola were assimilated, she still had hope Amy and Sonic would put things right. I mean, she still has nightmares of the incident, but at least she's trying to put on a brave face. It's losing her mother that finally broke her. All that passion, energy, and hope, gone. Sure, she's still helping out, but she's just going through the motions. Speaking of breaking characters, Whisper. Remember when I said the mere thought of losing her new friend Tangle scared her enough to speak up? When she learned of Tangle's infection, her reactions, not pretty. Tangle was the one to help her move on from the death of her comrades. To lose that person, wow. She needs the biggest hug in the world. I'm afraid what'll happen to her in the future. And these are all the characters accounted for at the end of the year. Silver was last seen in the Sonic Advance 2 level Ice Paradise handling Zombots all by himself, a convenient way to keep him away from the main action. Rouge is MIA after Shadow's conversion and Omega being reduced to a head, and Knuckles was a complete no-show. Though given him and Angel Island were the main focus near the end of year 1, I understand the creators wanting him to have some time off. Something tells me he'll be joining the conflict soon. Change also occurred on the villains front, specifically Dr. Starline. At the start of the year, he's firmly an Eggman fanboy, and by the end, he's not. It's a case of never meet your heroes because what you imagine does not meet with reality. Starline's faith was shaken a little when his attempt to kill Sonic only got an angry response from Eggman. Then there's that matter of losing control of the Zombots due to the virus code mutating. Something Eggman's not concerned about as long as the virus does the job. Throwing in the lack of a vaccine, a conversation with Orbot about Sonic and Eggman's cycle of conflict, and actually witnessing the two fighting, Starline came to the conclusion that instead of serving a brilliant strategist with a knack for long-term planning, he's working for a cartoony villain that's just winging it at times. That's why he went to the Deadly Six in order to get the Zombot situation under control. He also believes he can control them with a cacophonic conch. But I have this feeling something will go wrong. So what can we expect going into year 3? Well, according to Ian Flynn's Twitter feed, the heroes by issue 24 have reached rock bottom, and from here on out, it's all uphill, with some struggle involved. Good, because I believe it's time for the heroes to get some victories, especially since Ian said that the Mel Virus arc will end this year. Though this cover of issue 27, oh boy, why? Anywho, before the Mel Virus saga ends, we'll see how the Deadly Six integrate themselves into the conflict. Starlight may have prepared for the betrayal, but something's going to throw a wrench into this plan. Also, there are 7 colorful Deus Ex Machinas on the face ship that can turn the tide in this situation. And to show how the Mel Virus saga has a grasp at this continuity for at least the first quarter of the year, the upcoming IDW Sonic 2020 annual will feature 6 tales set during it. Some people want this Mel Virus saga to end already. Understandable, though I think the numerous delays last year did not help the matter. Me? I just want a satisfying conclusion to all this. Then afterwards, perhaps we can have some smaller breather tales before we get into the comic's next direction. Anyway, here's hoping for a good third year.